Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. This is your host, Miss Laura Aisha, and I am so excited to be here with you. It's February, and February has got me thinking about love. So we have a very cool episode here for you today, The Many Faces of Valentine's Day. And this whole month, we're going to be talking about love and relationships because it's Valentine's Day this month, and it's really got me thinking about the loveliness, the lovingness, the connection, and the past, present, future of love and relating to Valentine's Day. So we have a great, powerful, juicy conversation here today with some incredible guests. We've got Megan Zimring, Dr. Meyer, and Oren joining us for our first Ignite Intimacy roundtable conversation all about Valentine's Day. So you're going to get some insights, you'll get some ideas, inspirations, tips for how to just keep it real, how to, express yourself with your partner, what to do with any funky feelings that you might be feeling around Valentine's Day, and really how to celebrate yourself and your life, whether you have a partner or not. So definitely check it out. And remember, we are going to be live on the South by Southwest podcast stage on Saturday, March 9th at 9:30 in the morning at the JW Marriott. So if you plan to attend South by Southwest, please give us a shout. We want to see you there. We're going to have a hot conversation about making disclosure sexy. So without further ado, I am super stoked to invite you to listen to this beautiful conversation about the many faces of Valentine's Day. Enjoy it, and we will see you on the other side of this episode. All right, lots of love. Enjoy. All right, what is happening, family? This is amazing. I'm here in Los Angeles, and it's kind of like funny and cool that I am on the line with 3 other folks in the Los Angeles area. And we're doing this conversation virtually because LA is huge. For any of us to get anywhere in LA, it could take, anywhere from like 20 minutes to a couple hours. So it's wonderful to be on the line with 3 soul adventurers today. And we are diving into the topic of Valentine's Day. So I want to make sure that you know who's on the line with us. And we're going to be talking about just the many faces of Valentine's Day, the good, the bad, the ugly, what our experiences have been with Valentine's Day and how we feel about it now, and some ways that you can love and embrace yourself if you're single on Valentine's Day, or if you have a partner who either doesn't get with Valentine's Day or consistently never does anything special for you that you would like them to do. So we're going to talk about all sorts of fun, interesting things as it relates to Valentine's Day. And so I am really excited to have on the line again Dr. Meyer, who is a sex and relationship therapist. And Dr. Kat was on the podcast in 2018, and I'm going to find her episode. But Dr. Kat, say hello.
Hello. Excited to be back on.
Awesome. And so, Dr. Kat, just share with our audience again, for those who haven't heard your episode, share for our audience just, a little bit about who you are and what you're up to in the world.
Sure. I am a sex and relationship therapist, and I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm the founder of Sex Love Yoga and also the host of Eat, Play, Sex podcast. And I run women's events and retreats internationally around intimacy and embodiment and pleasure and all the things that are super yum.
Yes, I love that. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for being here with us today again. And just so you know, Dr. Kat was on the podcast episode 82, talking about the body, jealousy, and playfulness. And that's a hot episode. So definitely check that out, episode number 82. And then I'm so pleased to also have on the line both Megan Zimring, also known as Z, and her partner, Oren Harris, also known as O. So Megan and Oren, share with us, tell our audience what you're up to and who you are in the world.
Well, apparently we are in the wonderful world of Oz.
Yes.
Definitely. Well, and
I'm a traditional...
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say that's always a wonderful, magical place to be, the world of Oz.
Yes, lots of wizardry happening in this house. Yeah, so I'm a transformational coach. My passion is to, support people in really clearing out the wounding experiences, facing off with their fear to access the most liberated, fully expressed, highly excited, free version of themselves. I facilitate immersions and retreats and workshops. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, so I channel the wisdom of the stars in service of each person's evolutionary process. I've been working quite a bit with plant medicine, so I'm stepping more into the space as a facilitator in plant medicine ceremonial experiences. I actually just got back from Colombia working with the Kofan, the tribes down there, and just really, really deeply exploring and receiving the catharsis that is available through receiving the teachings of these incredible master plant teachers. So that's what I'm up to these days, and love speaking and sharing and connecting and all of that good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. You're amazing, babe.
Thanks, baby.
So I'm a transformation coach. And we had a little love moment there. I'm a transformation coach, and my most direct work is with the world's changers, the visionaries, the leaders, the coaches, healers, people who are dedicated and devoted to uplifting the planet. And I essentially help people to awaken to their true self, which I see as a path of spiritual awakening, but intersect that perfectly with living one's highest potential and giving our gifts as profoundly as possible. And I'm also a speaker. What I'm probably most known for speaking about is flow. Athletes call it the zone, artists call it creative inspiration, but tapping into that place of being in the right place at the right time, just interconnected with all of life where magic is happening consistently. So that's one of my passions, and love fuels everything I do and drives everything that I am and everything that I do.
Yes. Love that. Well, thank you all for being here on the line today and bringing the love. Actually, you were with my friend Mafe in Colombia, Megan. So,
oh my God, I love Mafe. Yes. Yeah, she's with Kata and Leo, who, channeled in the Jaguara. If anyone was at Burning Man for 2018, from my perspective, the most epic thing on that playa was Jaguara, this giant, incredible, I can't even call it an art installation. It's beyond an art installation. It's, a harbinger of the message of the jungle. It's really, truly an activation piece. And one thing that really came through in Colombia is how important it is to bring the message and the voice of the jungle home into the city and really infuse that frequency and make that available, within the more developed world, right? And so it was such a pleasure to connect deeply with Mafe and Kata and Leo and really see how deeply our visions weave and share our passion for really, bringing that message of the jungle home. It's the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, right? The living the reunion of the ancient indigenous wisdom traditions and the innovation of the Western world that's been developed. So it's really been a special thing. And I loved connecting with Mafe.
I love that. That is so beautiful and powerful. And, I feel like Valentine's Day, I didn't even look up like the history or the herstory or the tradition of Valentine's Day before this episode. However, I know that there is a Saint Valentine's and that there is some history that precedes this, the way that we experience Valentine's Day today in our culture. I think the main reason why I felt inspired to bring us together today to talk about Valentine's Day is that I've had a very mixed relationship with Valentine's Day. And, there are certainly lots to celebrate with Valentine's Day. And whether you're single or you're in a relationship of some sort, there can be amazing, beautiful experiences that you have because of this holiday, Valentine's Day, Hallmark holiday, however you want to call it. And then I also know that having been single for a large part of my adult life, there were many years when I felt bad, I felt ashamed, I felt left out because I didn't have a partner for Valentine's Day, or because the partners that I had didn't buy into the Hallmark holiday aspect of Valentine's Day, or they just weren't the type of people that were, surprising me and doing sweet things the way that I thought that I would have liked them to. So I really want to start with a conversation about, kind of go around the circle here and talk about what has your experience been with Valentine's Day? What was it in the past? How is it now? And let's start with you, Kat.
Yes, let's start with me. Well, so currently I am single, and last year was actually the first time that I had a partner present with me on Valentine's Day. Every other time either I haven't had a boyfriend at the time, or I was off traveling, or they were traveling, or this, that, or the other. So I really only have one experience of Valentine's Day with a partner, but it's always been such a treat for me. I love Valentine's Day. And to me, it's not so much about having a partner or having to have a partner, but it's this opportunity. Of course, we have an opportunity every day to celebrate love, but why wouldn't there be a holiday around love? And this also may come back to how I grew up. Valentine's Day was very special. My dad would, oh my God, he's so cute. He would fill the entire kitchen with these little paper Valentine's cards that were like Disney princesses. And he would write "Love Dad" on them and put them all over the kitchen. So the kitchen would be covered in them. And he'd always get us little candies and stuff like that and do like cute things for my mom. So for me, that was imprinted on my mind of just celebrate. I don't think that we have enough magic in our society, in our culture. Everything is about productivity and achieving and doing things or doing things out of obligation. But where's the magic in it? Where's the celebration in it? So I think to dedicate a day to get magical and to remind yourself to get into the feels and to, reconnect with your partner, especially if we're busy. It's a good reminder. Why not? Or even with yourself. So again, for me, I'm single, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to celebrate. I think this is a perfect opportunity to take myself out on a date. I take myself out on pleasure dates all the time. So why would this be any different? It's dedicating a space and time for the love of myself.
Yes. Well, okay. So I love that. That's so beautiful that you have this connection to the day of love, and that even as a young girl, it was filled with just like this, like love and magic, and, coming into the kitchen and like seeing all of the little Valentine's Day cards plastered around the kitchen. And it's like, I get this sense of wonder and magic and just like, and that's so beautiful. And I love your perspective on this because how great is it that we have a holiday to celebrate love and to bring it all out and to, be in that vibration. And whether you're in relationship or not, you could certainly do so many different things to celebrate love in your heart and love in your life and yourself. And tell us more about these pleasure dates. I'm curious about what those look like.
Well, a pleasure date is obviously anything that brings me pleasure. So it usually involves vegan ice cream of some sort at some point. But it can be as much as, depending on what my day looks like, it can be coming home and doing some sort of self-pleasure practice. And that can be bringing in a lot of sensual things. Like I'm such a texture sensual person, and just creating space for myself. So I light a bunch of candles and just spend time with myself and feel into myself and play really sexy music that gets me in my body. And I'm usually dancing, that kind of thing. But I've also taken myself out on a date and doing something that I enjoy. I've gone on, I think one year I went on a little hike up into Topanga Canyon. And once I was up at the top, it's my favorite trail. And I just laid out my yoga mat and did this really ultra sexy, sensual yoga by myself. Nobody was there. And then I just got to sit in that and just be. And for me, these things are like ultimately just creating space for myself, creating intentional space for me to be with me, whether I'm asking myself questions or whether I'm just practicing feeling. It's so important. So I'm not like just running off doing all these kinds of things. But even along that, on this particular day, there's so many people who are also practicing that intentionally. And to be around that, I do this little practice where if anybody's showing affection publicly, I love it so much. I'll just like stand there and just imagine like I'm soaking it up, like I'm absorbing their love. And I'm just like, yes, bring it in. So everybody benefits. And I think my pleasure benefits everybody as well. So you're welcome, world.
You know what, Dr. Kat? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. And I'm sure it does. And I remember my first trip to Mexico last year in February, and I was like, man, everyone's making out on the street in Mexico. It's like teenagers, older people, middle-aged people, 20-somethings. Everybody's like making out on park benches in the middle of the street, in restaurants.
Yes.
It was so yummy. And I was just like, God, there's so much love around. So yeah, I love that image of like celebrating other people's loves and even being there like, oh, I'm going to absorb some of that love and some of that connection. I love it.
Yeah, a lot of people just get disgusted. A lot of people get disgusted and they're like, oh, get a room or don't do that in public. And I'm like, why the hell not? This is, they're giving everybody else permission to be in pleasure, or they're reminding somebody else that, this expression of love, or to remember that and to feel that. And I think it's just, great. We're triggering people.
I love it. Well, and so just on the vegan ice cream tip, Dr. Kat and I got connected through some mutual friends so that I could feature her on the podcast. And I went to Burning Man for the first time in 2018. And I had been out venturing from like sunrise till, I don't know, it was maybe like 2 p.m. And I was really tired and it was hot. And I went back to my camp and some of my friends said, oh, we just went and got some vegan ice cream. It's really close. You should go get some vegan ice cream. And I was like, vegan ice cream sounds great right about now. So I got on my bike and I rode over there and I'm standing in line and this gorgeous, tall woman walks up to the line and I look at her and I'm like, Dr. Kat? And then to my surprise, my friend Megan Zimring, aka Z, shows up. And then Yadi, who's also been featured on the podcast, comes up. So it was like, and then Marley, who I met there and then reconnected with in Mexico a couple of times, was there as well. And it was just, this magical, amazing, juicy, just like synchronistic meetup on the playa. So
Goddess squad.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so Megan and Oren, Would love to hear from you. Oren, I'm curious, like, what has Valentine's Day been for you through the years?
It's definitely evolved. So I'll take you back a couple chapters ago. I never had a really strong connection with Valentine's Day, but I always celebrated it when I was in relationship. I don't recall ever celebrating when I wasn't in relationship, but there was a transition in my idea of Valentine's Day. I don't know exactly when it happened, but to me, like we've said, like Love Day or a Day of Love several times just in the first few minutes in us talking here. And when I remember back, it never stuck out to me as a day of love. Not, I mean, it was representative of love, but very specifically, more specifically, like romance is how Valentine's Day was portrayed, which romance is an expression or a way of experiencing love. But that's the distinction that I had before, which is probably one reason why I only celebrated it when I was in a romantic relationship. And so I think later on, just over time and leading up to like, more in present time, I kind of just decided what Valentine's Day was to me, which came back to a day of love, right? And a celebration of love. I think Valentine's Day should be more like Thanksgiving, right? Like giving thanks. And the other thing that's cool about Thanksgiving, which is probably a little bit different than Valentine's Day, when I haven't had family in town for Thanksgiving, it's a very common idea to celebrate Thanksgiving with friends. So you're still celebrating the holiday, right? Whereas Valentine's Day tends to be portrayed, as if you're in a relationship or a unit, which kind of makes it feel like a very specific type of love instead of a celebration of love. So the other thing that's happened with me with Valentine's Day is just releasing any expectation and being able to enter into the celebration purely in gratitude and starting just really connecting to the intention of celebrating love. And from that being whatever creative or innovative or having fun with that in terms of what the celebration looks like. And that's just another aspect of it. I think that earlier on, I was more heavily influenced by seeing movies, which then kind of, I wouldn't say it creates a pressure, but it just creates an image of like, Valentine's Day is about like how, extravagantly can you do X, Y, Z? And I'm just an extravagant guy anyway. I would do that anyway. But it shifted for me when I kind of just reconnected with the essence of it. So I kind of like zoomed out of it and then came back in with fresh eyes and like, what do I want to make this?
Yes. Okay. I just love that. And I'm sorry, Ignite Intimacy audience, you can't see us and you won't see this video, but we're all on video and I'm watching Megan. Oren and Megan are partners, and I'm watching Megan's, like, she's like smiling so big as Oren is speaking. It's like almost like the energy and just like beaming out of you as he's speaking. It's just such a beautiful thing to watch. And
look at him. So good.
Speaking of the beautiful Megan, so we celebrated at Valentine's Day, like right when we first started seeing each other. And I don't know if this was at the time, looking back in hindsight, if this was just who Megan was, or it's because we just first started seeing each other. There was something really beautiful and powerful for me on my end with her. I think she said something to me like, I just want to be with you. Right. And so like, I feel like if you can start with that energy, at least as the giver who's, giving, it creates such a magnetic field of love when it's just like when the other person is not, expecting anything in particular and is really just grateful for the love. And that's what I felt for Megan. So, right, I think we manifested a magical evening together. Anyway.
So we met on February 4th last year. So our anniversary is just a couple days away, our 1 year. And Valentine's Day was just a week and a half after,
right.
And so,
like, it's Valentine's Day now.
Yeah. And it's been, a journey for me and how I've related to Valentine's Day, I've actually noticed when you brought up the subject for this podcast, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about Valentine's Day coming this year. Whereas last year when we just met and I was coming out of a period of time of being single, I had Valentine's Day set up in my awareness. Like it felt like a big deal. Like, oh, I met someone and, you know, I had this almost like little girl fantasy of like, I hope we're together on Valentine's Day. And so I put it out there that I just want to be with you, you know, on Valentine's Day. And when I'm really honest with myself, it did inside of me a year ago feel like a big deal to be, that it was really, really important to me that we were together on Valentine's Day. And we had a beautiful, amazing experience on Valentine's Day. And I really did just want to be together. We were either going to go to a friend's potluck or go to a dinner, like just have a dinner. And the potluck ended up being too like far away. So it was a big drive. And we decided just in the last moment, okay, like that feels like we're meant to just go to a dinner. So we ended up going to like the most fancy vegan restaurant, Venice Plant Food and Wine, which has probably people made reservations a month before, like huge waiting lists. And I had just met Oren and was just getting a dose of his magic and his flow. And I was like, oh, I'd love to go to Venice Plant Food and Wine and have an amazing dinner. I was like, but no, they're probably booked out. And he's like, no, yeah, let's go there. And so we drive up and we get a parking spot right away. We walk in and within seconds, they're like, oh, we actually have just had a table open up and walk us directly to a table. And so it was just really effortless and easy and beautiful. But the most prominent thing that I'm noticing and how I'm personally relating to Valentine's Day is that, you know, the way I was relating to it last year was with a sense like the truth is I would have felt disappointed if we didn't do something on Valentine's Day. I still had it set up in my consciousness that it meant something if we did do it or if we didn't do it or what our experience was like, and which actually does create, you know, pressure or like obligation or like we have to do something. And I'm really appreciating that as we've deepened through this last year, I feel such a sense of security and stability and fullness in our relationship and within myself that I really don't feel like I need to do anything special for Valentine's Day. I feel like every day is Valentine's Day with us. I really do. And I'm so grateful for the way our experience is. Like literally, Oren surprised me with like roses and a special dinner experience, like a gourmet dinner just a few days ago, just because of his own inspiration. And I trust that now. So the way I relate to Valentine's Day now is just from celebration, and like anything is a bonus, you know, like just being together is a bonus. So there's something that's happened where a pressure valve has been released. The energy of like needing something that was coming from like my little girl, like wanting to be filled up by romance or relationship or some sort of external love, where now I feel like that reservoir is so full that anything that's special or magical that happens on Valentine's Day or on our anniversary is just a bonus. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Yes, totally. And so it's really interesting because you're in this relationship now for a year, and to hear your experience from coming out of a time where you were single and there were these expectations and these desires and needs around this particular day. Like, I hope we're together on Valentine's Day, and having some idea maybe about how that might look or how you want that to look. And I know for me in the past, one, in my own relationships and also witnessing the relationships of friends, there's a lot of judgment that can go around in certain groups of people where it's like, oh, your partner doesn't do this, or your partner, you know, like, oh, you know, is that a red flag? Right? So like, oh, your partner doesn't believe in Valentine's Day, red flag. You know, like there's all this judgment, I think, and expectation. And it can kind of become like this recipe for just disappointment and second guessing someone that you may be really fond of. And so that's something that I'd like to dig into a little bit in a moment here, because what I want to really point to is that now you've been in this relationship. And first of all, just like the magic and synchronicity of any time that I think, or I hear people say like, it's going to be too busy or we'll never get a table. I'm just like, okay, we should go. Like, we should definitely go because, you know, that whole like, we'll never get a table thing is just such BS. I'm like, if you're not there, you're not there to experience like the magic and synchronicity that can happen by just showing up. Right. So it's like, that's like just show up. You know, if that's where you're feeling called to be, go there. And I love how you guys like changed plans at the last minute and you really were in flow. You were just, you know, following the energy of the night. Now, a year later, this experience of being together and where magic and love happens on the day to day. And it's not so much about the expectation of this one particular day. And, you know, that there's really like this flow and this magic and this love between you that's growing as you spend time together that allows any of the, you know, story or needs around a particular day to fade away so that you can really create that love and that magic just on the regular between each other.
Well, one thing I've learned also just being with Oren is how the energy of like expectation or pressure, which, you know, can come up in women sometimes just from our social conditioning of what Valentine's Day is supposed to look like. And so we subconsciously can like put a lot of energetic pressure on the men to show up in a certain way, or else that means something, which actually kind of it makes it less exciting and less inspiring for the men. So that might be connected to some of the men that are kind of like, well, I don't even believe in Valentine's Day. They may have had experiences where it was just like energetically pressurized. And so I know that I've learned over my relationship with Oren that the more I've released the energies of expectation and pressure, his levels of inspiration and natural celebration and just this, there's more space for him to actually give me what it is that will light up my woman. And, you know, that part of me that really wants that. Because my dad too, Kat, you know, he's always sent flowers on Valentine's Day. Like, I love it. I'm a total romantic, all of that, you know, but I think the magic of last year's Valentine's Day was that I knew I wanted to be together. And actually the potluck was a friend's potluck. It was a group gathering. It was kind of like we'd only been together, seeing each other for 10 days. It was sort of like what I really, really would have loved was like a romantic dinner together. But I was like, well, we can just, you know, casual, no big deal. We'll go to a friend's potluck, whatever. And then because I was really just fine with that, it created the synchronicity that we ended up at a very romantic dinner, just the two of us with wine and food and the whole thing. So it's like the less pressure you put on it, the more of an invitation and more magnetic you become to the experience that you actually want. Because if you don't have the experience, it doesn't mean anything about your worthiness of that experience.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just looking at like the energetic dynamics of that, if one or both people are operating on the energy of should or even obligation, you could still have a lovely time. But I think that, and this is my generalization about women, I'll say, right, is that you guys don't just want to have an experience or receive something. Ideally, like deep down in your heart, if you were like wishing for something, you want a man to be passionate, to be moved. It's the whole thing of, I want you to want to, right? And people are not moved unless they're connected to their heart and to their spirit. And if a man even gets in that energy of this is what I should do, or this is what a man does, or this is, you know, even if it's something he wants to do, then that's the energy in which it comes from, and it kills magic. Expectation kills magic. It won't necessarily kill the event, but it'll kill magic. It'll kill passion. And I think that magic and passion comes from gratitude. Yeah, it comes from being in a space of abundance within ourselves. That's when magic can flow. And we like magic.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love this. I'm just like, yes. And I actually, Kat, I want to hear what is coming up for you in this conversation over there.
Yeah, I was over here like dancing in my seat, like listening to them say and listening to them speak. Like O and Z are masters at this. Let us all remember that right straight up. and they're so good at recognizing the stories that they tell and be able to drop it and everything. And what they're saying to the world right now is pure gold. And as humans, we have such a difficult time around expectations, because given everything we've experienced in our lives, it makes the framework of how we see or the meaning that we create out of things. Even if we tell ourselves, I don't have any expectations, a lot of times we do have expectations. Maybe they're more subconscious or they're just kind of running in the background. So I think a big part of it is to be able to have these conversations with your partner or with yourself even. What are the stories that I'm telling myself about Valentine's Day? What does it mean to love? What does it mean to be intimate? Like, what is intimacy to me? And when we can call those out and bring those to the forefront and engage with them, then it becomes a lot easier to do something with that. With our partner, just to be able to communicate, hey, I understand that this is my expectation. And it comes from how much we celebrated this as a kid, if you have that information. And I choose to have whatever experience that we co-create together. So I think that's really powerful. And then on top of that, being able to validate and empathize with your partner, meet them where they're at, see them for what they create Valentine's Day as, even if you don't agree with it. Validation is not about agreeing, but it's about seeing. So we can develop intimacy even just in that interaction. And then what ends up unfolding, we do that together.
That's a great point. I wonder if people even really talk much about Valentine's Day, like in partnership. That just occurred to me like that. That's something that we would naturally do something like that. But I just wonder if people even talk much about it, or do they just kind of sit in like, eager anticipation of like, oh, what's going to happen? I think that's
hoping, wishing,
talking
wondering.
about it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that's a kind of paradigm shift already. Is like talking about it. Because that's what I did back with myself. I was like, well, what does this mean to me? Like not what should it mean, not what I've been taught that it means, but what does it mean? Because that's when you really truly connect. And then the connection is where the love happens, So I think that's a great notion to like, to actually have intimate conversation, mm-hmm. even about Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. Which also means, as a woman, being willing to be vulnerable enough to face off with the fear that your partner may or may not have it situated in their consciousness with the same level of excitement that you have, and so it's a willingness to bring it out into the light and have the conversation. Because I know, historically, like in the past, it's almost like I would have had a resistance to talking about it with my partner because I would have just wanted him to want to do it. But then if he didn't show up in the way that I was quietly hoping or expecting, then that creates some sort of meaning or problem. And that's actually not a conscious way to relate to the experience, so it's actually in the willingness to be vulnerable and communicate about what really excites you and hear what really excites them. That's the most courageous, I feel like, way to engage with it, especially if there's any level of, if you're aware inside of yourself that there is a certain level of expectation on it, or, then I think it's important to have a conversation, about it.
Absolutely. Well, there's this phrase that
I heard in Landmark, and it's something about how like connection happens in communication, like
being in communication with each other.
So speaking to our audience, what I would say is just like, if you're in partnership and you're not having the conversation, if you're sitting on expectations and not communicating that to your partner and hoping or wondering if they will do XYZ, I encourage you to open up the conversation and talk with your partner about Valentine's Day or whatever is important to you, right? In your relationship, whether it's like, you've got kids and you want to have a standing date night once a week, or you want to have more sex, or you want to be just more, loving and intimate with each other, whatever it is, whatever you're sitting on that you're not speaking about or speaking to, being courageous and opening up that conversation, because that's where you can actually start to create something in reality out here in life, and not the quote unquote reality in your head, because our minds are so imaginative and there could be so much going on in our head, but we're not expressing that with the people that we actually want to know, like how we're feeling about something or what we desire. So I'm glad that you brought attention to that, Oren, about, how many couples are actually even just speaking about Valentine's Day and like, what does it actually mean to you? And, we're certainly talking in some general terms here. So this, could apply to any type of relationship, whether you're into, men, women, you're non-gender conforming, whatever your preference is. It's like, what do you want? What do they want? Being in communication, talking about it, and then creating something really amazing together. So thank you. Thank you for bringing some voice to that.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So we're kind of like there with it right now, and speaking to people, individuals who can tend to get really down on themselves or to feel left out or sad that they don't have a partner, or they and their partner's expectations or interests or desires don't align and don't match for something like Valentine's Day. And Dr. Kat, you had spoke to something really powerful about taking yourself out on a date. So I'm just thinking in terms of, how we can create the energy and the feeling and the experience of what we desire, whether we have a partner or not, on Valentine's Day.
First of all, I would want to say, if you're feeling disappointment around Valentine's Day, or if you're feeling low, I would highly suggest sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to feel that. Go through that whole cycle of what that is. If we immediately go into, I'm not supposed to be feeling this way, and I'm supposed to be feeling bubbly and sensual and pleasureful and all that stuff, then we're not showing ourselves love. We're not creating ourselves. We're not validating ourselves and loving every single part of ourselves. Like the other day, I had a moment that was pretty upsetting to me. And I sat down and I wrote in my journal all the parts of me, all the cats who were in my head, who were trying to look out for me, who were trying to speak to me and protect me, and gave each of them a voice. And by the end of it, I felt so good about moving forward. But it wasn't until I sat with it and I validated and I saw myself, could I then move forward and choose how I wanted to be. And I ended up going and spending it with friends later. And I was able to, versus if I didn't give myself the space to sit with that and validate, I would have carried that through into the next experience. Because it wasn't seen, it wasn't heard, it wasn't processed. So whatever comes up for you around or on Valentine's Day or even any other day, practice that love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you can go get vegan ice cream. Or you can go, find something that's sensual or something fun, but not until you first meet yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Kat is sharing. And, from an evolutionary perspective, if material is coming up that's being catalyzed by Valentine's Day, we can zoom out just a little bit and see Valentine's Day itself as the catalyst. So what is this catalyst showing me about how I'm holding myself, what edges I still have in my own awareness, what misbeliefs or misinterpretations I'm holding about myself, about making this mean anything about me, and how can I give myself what it is that I'm wanting or desiring from some outside source on Valentine's Day. So if material is coming up, it can actually be a really beautiful opportunity, just like Kat's saying, to deepen in your own self-love, really look clearly inside, turn inside, and see what's, with radical, transparent honesty and deep, deep compassion, what's being shown to you about how you're relating to yourself, period. And I agree. Once that feels complete, I had an experience just the other day with a good friend of ours, David, and he has a woman in his life who's incredible, and they're so close, really, really amazing friends. And he was saying, we were driving by restaurants, and it was so amazing to witness this awesome man, like, tagging things in his head. He was excited about like looking for places to take her on Valentine's Day. And I was like, I didn't even put together that you guys would do something for Valentine's Day. And his response was just the most innocent, genuine, of course she deserves to be celebrated on Valentine's Day. So it was just like a no-brainer for him to celebrate his best friend on Valentine's Day, because his best friend isn't holding any like have to or obligation. It was just his excitement to celebrate her. And so one thing that came up for me when you asked this question was, if we're feeling on Valentine's Day like we want to be celebrated, or that something is missing, or we're getting down on ourselves, what about switching it and asking, how can I celebrate someone in my life that I adore and that really deserves that? Whether it's a girlfriend or a guy friend or a family member, give someone in your life the celebration that you're looking for on Valentine's Day. So just as much as we want to receive that love, we can also output that energy and then watch it come back through the light in their experience and through the love that activates inside of them, So there's a lot of different angles on it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Oren, I'm curious, from a male perspective, what are your thoughts?
I concur with what both Kat and Megan said about just being with how you feel. And what I would add to that, which I think was already communicated, is that one thing that comes from being with how you feel is you can actually find out what your heart truly wants, right? Because when we're giving meaning, and interpretations and ideas, or even ideas about what Valentine's Day is, then the images that we're creating in our mind of what we want are often not what we want, especially if they're laced with judgment or fear or expectation. And so, that's the value of truly allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling without any judgment and being with yourself. One of the things that emerges out of that in the field of clarity is like, what does your heart truly want? Like, what's the essence of what you want, rather than some idea? And that's something then that you can actually receive inside of yourself. So yeah, that's my thought about that. And this is what I said about the Thanksgiving thing. Like, we have no problem doing like Friendsgiving, if we don't have family, but I don't think a lot of people think about, I could celebrate Valentine's Day with a friend, so we could start a movement on that. I don't know, but I think it's amazing because it's like, it's love day, right? It doesn't have to be confined into a particular picture of love or romantic love if we're celebrating love. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, yeah, it's like if you're single and you have other friends who are single, or, other friends who are even in partnership, but maybe their partners are traveling or their partners aren't really into Valentine's Day, host a gathering, reserve a table for 10 at some cool restaurant or at Denny's, and, get together with people, have fun, go for a hike, celebrate, dance, move, connect. And also what I'm really getting from what everybody's sharing is keep it real. So yes, if you are really feeling down about not having a partner, or your partner's and your desires, expectations are not matching, feel that, journal about it, talk to a good friend or your therapist, watch a touching movie, get the energy moving, listen to some music, feel it, clear it, be with it, and then discover what's there once you've given yourself permission to actually just be where you are.
One thing I would add to one, I guess, compartment of this we haven't really talked about specifically is that if you and your partner have different ideas about Valentine's Day, I imagine, that's a phenomenon that happens. I think that one is actually easily solved with a bit of courage and vulnerability, because again, when I say like our heads sometimes are interpreting what our heart wants. And so if we actually are vulnerable or courageous enough to have a communication, then the partner who is not in the Valentine's Day, that might just be as a result of their own conditioning. But if we were to actually have an intimate conversation, and we say, well, he says how I feel about Valentine's Day and why, then you get to the heart of the matter. Then you get to the heart of like, okay, why he's not resonating with Valentine's Day. And what I've found is that when you have that type of communication, a lot of the times where it seems like there's no harmony or there's no like zone of commonality, there actually is one. It was just being obscured by something else. And, that can be really unconscious, even within a person. They may not even know why they don't resonate with Valentine's Day. But that same person, if you were to get down to it, if you stripped away all the debris, they might be like, oh, well, yeah, I resonate with love and celebrate. And like, oh, that sounds now, if we're doing that, if that's what Valentine's Day is, then I'll do that. You see, so that's an example where, there's a facade potentially, like, or an illusion that, oh, my partner, we're just on different pages. And I think so many times when we think we're on different pages, especially if there's any tension around it or any resistance, you might not even be on a different page. So if you don't explore that, though, then you're just going to keep looking at the scene and reiterating to yourself that, oh, we're on a different page, but that might not even be the case.
Yeah. So it's like just getting with yourself, getting with each other so that you actually have the real facts about what's going on and what's not going on. Right. Because we'll create the most wild, fantastical stories in our brains and we'll be like all enrolled in some crazy ass story that's not even true. And then you actually start talking about it and it's like, oh, really? You feel that way? Like, wow, there's discovery there. Right. So, well, this has been so beautiful. I'm so glad that we jammed on this topic. I know that I've bridged the gap in my own experience of Valentine's Day through the years by deepening and actually just learning about and fostering self-love, because I've been mostly single in my adult life. So through the years, I noticed the more I love myself, the less I care about, whether I have a Valentine's or not or whatever. And so it's been a really, really dynamic and interesting journey. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for all of you joining us today for this Ignite Intimacy Powwow. This is really like our first kind of roundtable conversation about something. So it's really exciting. And I just want to make sure that our guests know how to find you all online. So Dr. Kat, share with us your links and, where you hang out online and how people can get in touch with you.
Where I hang out online. Sounds like a cafe. I hang out at Instagram Cafe at Sex Love Yoga. You can also find me on sexloveyoga.com or my podcast, Eat, Play, Sex.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Cool. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And Oren, how can people find you online?
I'm all up in the Instagram at Oren Harris, RENHARRIS. I'm also Oren Harris on Facebook. I'm pretty active on both of those. And my website is also Oren Harris, ORENHARRIS.com.
Fantastic. And Z?
Well, I'll be hanging out wherever each of these guys are hanging out. Wow. Lucky girl. I got a best friend and man friend. Yes. So I am at Megan Zimring, MEGANZIMRING on Instagram and Facebook. And my website is the same, meganzimring.com.
Amazing. Well, Ignite Intimacy, you heard it here. What a powerful conversation. Thank you all for joining us today. And we just want to, send so much love and light to you all out there. We're all courageous, adventurous, love, relational explorers. So keep loving yourselves. Let's keep loving each other. And we will see you on the next one. Stay blessed. Happy Valentine's Day and ciao for now. Well, Ignite Intimacy community. That was a beautiful, powerful conversation about self-love, keeping it real, embracing your own desires, speaking to your expectations, having communication with your partner about, what you desire, about Valentine's Day, about, being curious about what they desire, what do they want, and how to just bring love and magic and connection into the day-to-day. I mean, just hearing all of the different experiences from Dr. Kat and Megan and Oren and, the celebration of love and having a day to celebrate love and taking yourself out on pleasure dates, whether or not you have a partner, actually communicating with your partner about what you imagine Valentine's could look like or that you want it to look like. And also being curious about what your partner desires and what is their thought or feeling about Valentine's Day. Do they have any expectations or concerns or worries? And if you're feeling bummed out about Valentine's Day and not having a partner or having mismatched desire and expectation with your partner, just allowing yourself to feel that. And instead of trying to make yourself feel some different way, but really allowing yourself to be there and to feel exactly how you're feeling. One of the main reasons why I wanted to create this podcast is so that we can all be on this journey together. None of us are alone. There are so many people, there's such a grand spectrum of experiences and energies and emotions, and so many people, whatever you're dealing with right now, guaranteed there are thousands, if not millions of people in the world experiencing similar things than you are. I know that the more courageous I've been about sharing about my own journey in love and romance, I've certainly found that I'm not alone. And it has certainly helped me to feel more connection, more freedom, more joy, and a lightness that I didn't feel before. So what I'd like to offer you challenge this week, and take a moment, and if you have a journal, or maybe you like to type, or maybe you dance or paint or play an instrument or sing, and give yourself 30 minutes sometime this week, sometime before Valentine's Day, or maybe it's even on Valentine's Day, and meditate on what does it mean to love? What does it mean to be intimate? What am I not saying that if I said it about my desires, dreams, expectations around love and intimacy, romance, Valentine's Day, then what could be possible? And just give yourself the freedom to explore and express on those topics or anything else that inspires you. And see what comes through, and let us know. Give us a shout. You can comment on this podcast on YouTube and in our Ignite Intimacy Facebook group, at Ignite Intimacy on Instagram. You can also email us hello@igniteintimacy.com. And I also want to remind you that South by Southwest is coming up in Austin, Texas, and the Ignite Intimacy podcast will be doing a live podcast recording from the podcast stage on Saturday, March 9th at 9:30 in the morning at the JW Marriott. So stay tuned. We'll have more information about that. If you're planning to come to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, we want to see you there. We're having a very hot conversation about making disclosure sexy. So love you lots. Thank you so much for tuning in again and again and again. Please share this with your friends. And if you like what you hear, if you're getting something out of it, hop over to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review so that more people can learn about this podcast. Ignite Intimacy community. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a beautiful, amazing Valentine's Day, and we will see you on the next one. Lots of love, and ciao for now. Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.